Some beloved games still need a sequel or a good comeback. The gameranx crew is here rounding up 20 games that deserve a second chance at life. Starting off at number 20, let's talk Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. The undead corpse of Konami continues to shamble along, promising to release a whole bunch of new Silent Hill games in the near future, but years ago, that's one series we assumed was totally dead. But the magic of, I guess, corporate synergy brought it back. We have no idea how those Silent Hill games are going to turn out, but there is one more Konami game that demands a sequel. It's Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. The Metal Gear franchise is still kicking, of course, with that remake of Metal Gear Solid 3 on modern hardware, and the discarded side series here is stuck in permanent limbo. No one expects a Revengeance 2. No one's talking about a sequel, but we can dream. The magic of Platinum's singular, bloody, and bizarre action game comes in how they've built something amazing from the scraps of what actually was a failed project. Metal Gear Solid Rising was like this side story being developed with series creator Hideo Kojima before the entire thing fell apart. And then Platinum Games, the developers behind Vanquish and Bayonetta and so many other amazing action games we can't list here, picked up the pieces and made something that really blew us all away. Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance is a game that runs on pure adrenaline, parries, and weird blood, playing as like the best version of permanent series sidekick kind of Raiden. You're slicing your way through armies of cybernetic enemies while the coolest music on the planet plays. The boss fights are freaking amazing, the action is incredible, and the stupidity never stops.
Well, if it isn't Saucy Jack. Just a little too late, as usual.
Armstrong. Impressive little toy you've got there. But your plan ends here.
Idiot! You're not ending our plan. You're expanding it. Check the internet lately.
This might be part of a larger, more successful franchise, but Revengeance really is its own separate beast. And how can we ignore that ending, dude? I mean, the ending is like literally what memes are made of. One of the singular achievements of our time. Just imagine what Platinum could do at the height of their narrative powers. Just imagine all the weird stuff we're missing out on with a Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance 2, or like Revengeancer, I don't know. Next over at number 19, it's Days Gone. Now, Days Gone is the open world zombie game to really end a lot of open world zombie games. It's a massive story that takes your biker hero, or anti-hero really, across 3 major regions, all while fighting different factions as everyone tries to hold back the unstoppable massive waves of the undead. What makes Days Gone unique for a lot of hardcore fans is kind of hard to describe. You just gotta experience a battle against seemingly an endless horde of zombies for yourself. One of the most impressive features of the game is you'll have to clear out entire swarms of these things using traps and other weapons, burning and blasting through a sea of monsters that just wants to eat your face off. Sometimes it kind of feels like this is the closest we ever got to a true zombie apocalypse Grand Theft Auto, hopping in your vehicle, driving around, getting out whenever you want. The Red Dead Redemption Undead Nightmare expansion comes close, but Days Gone comes way closer to this ideal game type. We want to drive around, scavenge stuff, clear out throngs of wandering zombies. It's a rocky game. It's definitely got some flaws that we called out back when it first released, but the love for this one runs deep. The story even ends on a massive cliffhanger too. The roots of a sequel are there, but this is one franchise that's probably never going to happen. The developers themselves confirmed the dream is dead, so we're just kind of stuck imagining all the undead adventures on motorcycles we'd have instead of playing them.
Symbols of the lost!
Hey, over here! Sons of bitches, get off him! Rip Ripper, assholes! Come on!
Next over number 18, trying to be rational here, but the immersive sim curse might be real. Games like Thief and Deus Ex were snuffed out way before their time, earning a few sequels before the developers' studios were closed permanently. And unfortunately, the Pied Pipers of Microsoft have come to collect from Arcane Leon, the creators of one of the best games of the last generation. We're not here to mourn praise death, we're here to celebrate and beg the higher powers of gaming to give it a second chance, man. And so we're clear, we're talking about the 2017 Prey, the one where you're in a flying research facility that's been overrun by weird shape-shifting aliens. After you break free from a simulation that's studying your day-to-day routine on Earth, you're using goop guns and weird gadgets to build bridges and unlock things, and there's so much to it. The monsters themselves take many forms and become more dangerous as you dig deeper into this space station. This whole outbreak. And exploration and problem solving are what makes this game special, and very few games give us the same kind of spooky, surreal, and creative energy as Prey. Next over at number 17, Rockstar is too busy making GTA 6 and sucking up infinite money through a straw to spare a moment for Bully. All that Grand Theft Auto Online money is probably too good for them, but like, Bully really does deserve a sequel. The unique school simulator gave you a full boarding school to explore and the surrounding town on your bike, like, you know, checking things out as you deal with real bullies, make friends, and try to earn a passing grade in algebra. Bully comes from a completely different era of the GTA developer Rockstar, man. Like, they had the bandwidth to make weird experiments like this. Getting to experience the daily grind of school while riding a skateboard or playing hooky felt so much more grounded. You weren't running around shooting people, you were getting detention and doing pranks and running away from hall monitors. There's something so charming about Bully.
I wish someone would cause some trouble. Get back here, right? I've been wanting to do that for a long.
And we'd love to see Rockstar really go all out in a sequel. Just imagine the difference between like Red Dead Redemption and Red Dead Redemption 2. You'd have to take literal tests, eat cafeteria lunches to keep your stamina up, maybe say like deal with weird random events while walking around the school grounds, maybe a second school you can visit, a whole city for more hijinks, the driver's test. There's so much they could have done with a Bully sequel. Next over at number 16, speaking of unfulfilled potential, another open world adventure that deserved a second shot was The Saboteur, a game about stabbing jackbooted thugs in the back and blowing stuff up with bombs. The Saboteur was an open world shooter with a focus on stealth, putting you up against the entire Nazi army in occupied Paris. Now, we already talked about GTA with zombies and GTA in school, so let's not forget about GTA in World War II. Now, while The Saboteur definitely shares a lot of DNA with GTA, it's actually a whole lot closer to another stealth series that gives you a lot of ways to finish your missions, Hitman. Going in guns blazing is surprisingly difficult here, so your best bet is to pull the old Indiana Jones routine and steal a uniform off a German soldier to sneak around in plain sight. Planting explosives and giant military bases and walking out while all hell breaks loose is one of gaming's great joys, and we'd love to see The Saboteur with more modern mechanics. Hey, at least give us like a modern re-release or something.
At least I can see straight again.
Next over at number 15, I've said it before, I'll say it again, I swear by it, the world needs more brooding vampires that are also really ugly and have cool scarves. The Legacy of Kain series hasn't seen another entry since 2003, and we're still kind of like angrily pacing around waiting for someone to pick up the ball here. If we can't have any new Castlevanias, the least we could get is a new Legacy of Kain. Now, the big question is, like, you know, which game do you want a sequel to the most? Do you prefer Soul Reaver Raziel, a more traditional hero, or the completely selfish, brutal Kain? They're both cool as hell, but their respective games are so different, it's hard to choose which would make the better sequel. They both work in the dark fantasy mold carved out by games like, you know, Dark Souls and Elden Ring that feel that vibe, but that's a little too simple. These games deserve a new entry with fresh blood where you're free to explore, maybe slate your bloodthirst from whatever fantasy peasants you see. There could be a lot here. With the continued delays of, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2, it's time for the evilest vampire to really take his spot on the game release calendar again. Who knows if it's ever going to happen? I don't know for sure, but wishful thinking, man. Next over, number 14, Disco Elysium. Now, it breaks our heart that this game is a franchise on life support. It would take a miracle to bring back all the competing forces that made this one of the best games ever. It's like a hilarious and surreal story that mixes the highbrow with the lowbrow, putting you in the crummy shoes of a detective trying to solve a murder in a fictional country. You might be a detective, but you still lost your gun. Maybe you'll never find your gun. The world is so big and your gun is so small. The writing in Disco Elysium is what you're here for. You're going to be talking to confusing racists and weird mercenaries and cruel capitalists that are as infuriating as they are hilarious. And each conversation is written with such loving specificity, you really need to experience the entire game for yourself. Without experiencing it, Disco Elysium looks like an oddball CRPG without combat, but like a whole lot of dice rolls. And that's basically what it is, but there's just so much more to it, so much flavor. We have no idea what a sequel to Disco Elysium would even look like, we just know we want to see it. Now, next over at number 13, LA Noire. LA Noire is a dream game for some people. It's a miracle that LA Noire even ever got made. And learning about how bad the conditions were for the developers, maybe it shouldn't have been made. But we're going to ignore all that stuff and focus on the good here. LA Noire is an amazing game that could have been even better if it ever got a sequel. Inspired by film noir, the game takes your detective, this like playable character, through a series of different mini storylines as you progress through departments at an early LAPD. LA Noire blew our minds with its facial animation back in 2011. Today, the faces look a little funky, but they still convey everything like a huge stable of real actors brought to the table, giving us facial tics, smirks, a nervous look, all the stuff a budding detective could ask for.
Here's the deal, Airto. You give me information, and I won't give you to immigration. Give me EJ, the driver bringing in the shipments, or I'll make you for it.
I run the shop. That's all I do.
Tell me the goddamn truth. You are in this with the others.
I told you I know them. I told you my family's at risk. What makes me part of their gang?
Think about how incredible facial animation is today and how much that would benefit a sequel. This is one of the few games where the acting immediately affects the gameplay. I mean, look at some of these lying mugs. There's joy in figuring out who's lying just by watching someone overreact into oblivion. And honestly, they could just have so much more charm and memorable moments with a sequel. Next over at number 12, if Resident Evil can reinvent itself 2 or 3 times, why can't Dino Crisis? The more action-oriented survival horror series dropped you on an island packed with dinosaurs straight out of Jurassic Park, and instead of carefully counting your bullets, your job is actually to just exterminate these guys. These are games that look like Resident Evil and fully embrace absurdity. Shooting T-Rexes and Velociraptors with guns isn't exactly always scary, but it is thrilling enough to make us want so much more of it. The enemies move 10 times faster than shambling zombies, so you'll be dodging and sprinting and blowing stuff up at a rate once thought impossible in standard survival horror fare. And continuing this series could really up the ante. No, we don't talk about that weird one, that sci-fi one. Nope, not mentioning it. Resident Evil 4 kind of like upped the action and horror from the original, and that's what we want for Dino Crisis. Give us a knife so we can parry velociraptor bites, and one of those giant sniper rifles to shoot a head off like a triceratops or whatever. Resident Evil can't have all the fun, Capcom. You can have more than one game about hunting dinosaurs. Monster Hunter can't hog the spotlight forever. Next, over at number 11, Brutal Legend had no business being as good as it was. The developers behind games like Psychonauts have plenty of weird one-offs under their belts, and Psychonauts somehow earned itself a sequel. So we're picking Brutal Legend for the second chance treatment. Starring Jack Black as a rocker that's sucked into a heavy metal world, what starts out as kind of like an exploration game with light combat actually turns into a full-blown RTS. And that's what we want to see expanded. Lots of people were lost by the real-time strategy side of Brutal Legend for good reason. Everything from the title to the box art to the trailers made Brutal Legend look like a fast-paced action game about wiping out armies of enemies with the power of, like, cool rock.
Beast of the medial waste.
But no, you'll be defending bases and commanding troops on the battlefield. And with improved technology, it means we can have so many more tiny troopers to boss around. We want more little dudes hitting each other with spiked guitars. 10 times as many little dudes. Games with armies of little guys are so rare on console, especially in this day and age, so we'd love to see someone give Brutal Legend another shot. Next, over at number 10, what happened to Sleeping Dogs? One of the best games about everything we love in Hong Kong action movies fizzled out after a failed attempt at a really weird sequel. We won't blame anyone for forgetting Sleeping Dogs Triad Wars existed briefly before getting canceled. That was a multiplayer-only spin-off that literally nobody wanted, but we'll never forget that OG Sleeping Dogs. We're going back to the GTA well here. Even if Sleeping Dogs is actually a spiritual successor to the true crime games, which themselves were kind of like, GTA ripoffs, Sleeping Dogs is more than that. This game is legit. Sleeping Dogs is a brawler and open world action game with fun cops versus criminals story, tasking your undercover agent with infiltrating the Triad crime network and questioning allegiances in the process. The game is gritty, but never too serious. Always introducing new mechanics like ramming vehicles with your car, or jumping on your car, or unlocking cool new moves to take out enemies and really good finishers and hand-to-hand combat. You're always doing something new, and it's all ridiculously fun. They gotta make another one of these because of the setting, the gameplay feel, everything. Next, over at number 9, the best Call of Duty isn't even a real Call of Duty game. Titanfall 2 takes the crown thanks to its secret weapon, this big robot buddy that learns the meaning of friendship as you fight through one of the most fun first-person shooter campaigns ever. Now, Call of Duty has carved out its own chunk of the gaming landscape, and the Titanfall series deserves its own place on the pedestal. Even before the single-player campaign in Titanfall 2, the basic gameplay itself is just fun. Summoning your own mech to pilot or fight alongside you on the ground is such a brilliant idea. We can only imagine it must be really hard to do technologically, or everyone would be stealing this concept by now. If we were living in a fair world, there would be a dozen Titanfall sequels, each with crazy cool campaigns that were as creative as this one. Who could forget that amazing mission where you swap between 2 different time periods while exploring this abandoned facility, or the mission where you fight across a convoy of spaceships? EA probably won't give us more Titanfall at this point. Maybe it was a fluke we got a game this good out of modern EA in the first place. I don't know, but I hope Respawn gets another shot at this franchise.
I will remain here and scan the ring structure while you investigate the facility for intel and the missing device.
gotta be an easier way, BT.
I will work on it. Unauthorized personnel detected. Operating security.
Now, next over at number 8, here's one you probably haven't thought of in a long time: Enslaved: Odyssey to the West. It is a capital S story that deserves a second chance. And based on how much it technically sold, there's a good chance most of you out there haven't actually played it. Between Heavenly Sword and the Devil May Cry reboot, developers Ninja Theory made this charming action platformer adventure called Enslaved: Odyssey to the West, like I said. Based heavily on the Chinese novel Journey to the West with a sci-fi twist, Enslaved is a creative game packed with set pieces that's grounded with a great performance from Andy Serkis. You know, the guy that played Gollum in the Lord of the Rings movies? Enslaved is just well done, and seeing how far Ninja Theory have pushed their graphical style in Hellblade 2 makes us really curious what they do with an Enslaved sequel. Next over at number 7, we talked about Brutal Legend. That was a game about little guys bludgeoning each other with tiny axes, but sometimes that isn't enough. Sometimes you need lots of little guys with guns spraying bullets everywhere while ragdolling around ridiculously, and that's Freedom Fighters in a nutshell, man. An underappreciated game that I've talked to death about on the internet. I apologize if I sound like a broken record at this point, but it's still underappreciated and needs to be remembered. It's a third-person shooter where you run around occupied New York City recruiting allies to defeat the invading Soviet Union, but this isn't like a Red Dawn scenario. Everything is kind of ridiculous here, from the bombastic music to the cartoony visuals that constantly remind you that you shouldn't be taking any of this too seriously, but it's just got the right feel to it. This is the perfect game if you're the type of person that loves watching AI enemies like trying to shoot each other and everyone is a really bad shot so the chaos lasts a long time. There's basically no chance at this point that we'll get another Freedom Fighters, but I'm always just going to continue to hold out hope.
Defend this area. Squad. Take them out. Get moving.
Next over at number 6, another lost Capcom franchise that we haven't had enough of yet is Onimusha. This series started out as a kind of almost a Resident Evil clone in feudal Japan and really evolved into something very different, its own thing, becoming increasingly ridiculous and having a unique identity for telling big stories with lots of characters and giving us lots of sword action to dig our teeth into. Onimusha as a series hit its peak when it introduced actor Jean Reno as the secondary protagonist who travels through time from modern day France. That's kind of like the bonkers energy we want to see more of. Onimusha isn't totally forgotten like some of the games on our list. The original game, which is an honest-to-God weird survival horror game with fixed camera angles and everything, got a remaster in 2018. And we're still waiting on the Onimusha 3 remaster. Capcom has time for Dead Rising Deluxe remaster, so they must have time to port Jean Reno into the Resident Evil engine. I want to see that scowling face in all its HD glory, man.
J'arrive. Jacques.
Now down at number 5, No One Lives Forever is a game begging for a revival. This whip-smart send-up of James Bond and other groovy 1960s super spies might be a little dated in our post-Austin Powers world, but there's something timeless about the effortless fun of No One Lives Forever. Drama and video games share a similar sentiment, man. Death is easy and comedy is hard. Games still struggle to get comedy right. No One Lives Forever made it look easy. Heroine Kate Archer is the straight man in this like really silly, goofy world. The evil organization, HARM, or HARM, is bent on taking over the world, and you'll have to fight armies of all kinds of weird enemies to save the day. There's no reason No One Lives Forever 3 couldn't work. Here's what you need to do. Make it third person so you can feel closer to the character, then hand it over to, I don't know, experienced developers like Crystal Dynamics. They know how to make a tongue-in-cheek game with a strong female lead. Too bad they're already doing that with the Perfect Dark reboot. Another sequel to a series we'd be putting on this list if it didn't already exist.
Vive la France! Ha ha!
And now at number 4, Burnout. It distills the driving experience into the only two things that matter: going fast and crashing. And nothing does speed on cars twisting into pretzels while flying through the air better than these games. The ultimate high-speed driving game doesn't really have an equivalent right now. I mean, we have the Forza Horizon series for open world racing, regular Forza for hardcore simulation and Gran Turismo and stuff like that, but none of it really comes close to the white-knuckle adrenaline craziness that Burnout really represented. There are games with speed and crashing, but there aren't any games with Burnout speed or Burnout quality crashing. Imagine the crashing mini-games, or really like the traffic stopping horrific car accidents in these games on a new game on modern hardware, like entire highways of cars exploding, massive open-ended races, real car deformation, and like realistic physics. I don't know, there's something that really could happen here. And now coming down at number 3, Deus Ex is the original series we all rooted for. The original game was a groundbreaking step forward, pushing immersion and player choice when totally linear games were kind of the norm. It also fizzled out almost immediately, leading to a sequel that was nowhere near as loved as the original. Replayed that sequel more recently, and it's amazing to see just how watered down a game could be when it needed to be on consoles and PC back in 2003. Things have changed a lot now. Console and PC games feel more interchangeable at this point, but even the later Eidos sequels suffered the same immersive sim curse. Deus Ex Human Revolution and Deus Ex Mankind Divided were kind of technically prequels that kept the torch lit for Deus Ex. And it's about time we got another one. Now, Mankind Divided ends on a massive cliffhanger because the game just wasn't kind of finished. It's a depressing note to end a series that needs to be rectified by someone, anyone. These games are like the definitive action RPG shooters. The newer ones, the old ones, it's the game that everyone else compares them to. Even if there isn't a new Deus Ex, indie developers will be making them in one form or another forever. You know, it's like Capcom and Mega Man. There hasn't been a Mega Man game in a while, so indie developers fill in the gaps. Deus Ex is a lot harder to copy and nail down, but here's hoping an official game in the future recaptures that original magic. And here down at number 2, Red Faction. Now, the original games were cool, they were very charming, they had their own special quirks, but we're talking 2009's Red Faction Guerrilla. This spin-off needs to continue. You're armed with a sledgehammer and a whole lot of explosives, and there are few things as fun as figuring out how exactly to demolish an enemy base in this game. No other game before or after really lets you destroy buildings so thoroughly and satisfyingly, with the destruction physics that are modeled so completely. You need to smash buildings one wall and pillar at a time until they tumble over in like a really glorious display of physics. Seriously, not even the sequel of this game captures that feeling of smashing your toys and watching a Lego set crumble into itself. We need another Red Faction Guerrilla, even if the original developers' Volition are yet another casualty of the Embracer Group corporate acquisition. If we lived in a just society, we'd have at least one true sequel to Red Faction Guerrilla. Maybe Red Faction Guerrillas. I don't know. Now finally, down at number 1, Unreal. It's the game that made Epic rich, and it's also the game series that's totally forgotten by those same developers. You know Epic, right? The developers behind underground, little-known games like Fortnite, and that's it. They only make Fortnite now. Instead of using all that goodwill and cash to create something like Unreal again, they're more focused on the tech side of things, pushing the tech world forward. Unreal is one of the big ones. It's a game that changed everything. Exploring the vast environments of an alien planet while fighting monsters that actually had AI was a huge step over what we were used to in first-person shooters. In this, the alien Scar dodged your shots and hunted you like the Predator, and that's just one of the games we loved in the franchise. Unreal Tournament made an even bigger impact on young, impressionable lives like ours. Fragging friends with the Redeemer nuclear cannon and sniping each other on 2 forts are like required memories for aging millennials that can't let the past go. Basically, we need more games like Unreal, and with all the cash Fortnite is printing out, there's no reason we shouldn't get more. I mean, they tried a while ago, but we need a real return to form. There's a grim irony in the fact that the Unreal Engine, one of the most popular game development engines or tool sets in the world, has the name Unreal in it, but we're not going to see another game Unreal. Look, we know Fortnite is the thing keeping them busy, but come on, just go back to what really made you. Throw us a bone here. And that's 20 games that deserve a second chance at life. There are so many others that we wanted to include here and missed, so if you got a favorite defunct game series you want to see sequels to, tell us all about it in the comments. We like a good nostalgic memory as much as the next guy, you probably know that by now, but hit us up in the comments. If you like this video, clicking the like button's all you gotta do. It really helps us out. And subscribe if you're new, because we put out videos every single day, dude. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.